that we're going to be talking about the New York City Retirement Savings Program. There's over 2 million people in New York City that will be covered by this law, so we're very excited to get it going. Look behind me at the sea of AARP volunteers. I think what you need to know is these folks, for the most part, are retired that came out today. And why are they here? Because of their friends, their neighbors, their children, their own experiences. They know that people don't have enough money to retire on here in New York City. In fact, the average is $10,000. Okay, not gonna do it. So that's why, on behalf of AARP's 750,000 members in the 5 boroughs, we want to help people be able to retire and continue to afford in what we consider the greatest city in the world. So I'm thrilled to be standing here as we announce the Retirement Security for All. Creating this program has been a priority for AARP all across the country, and New York is going to have the distinction of, once it's implemented, of being the first city in the country to implement a retirement savings program for all. That's right. So I'm really excited to first introduce Ben Kalos, who I know for a very long time, and he has been a champion for this legislation, oh my God. From the first day I think I met you, you brought up this issue, so please join us.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Councilmember Ben Kalos, and every New Yorker should be able to save for retirement. The big problem is that more than half of working-age New Yorkers don't have access through their employers to any type of retirement plan. 641,000 New York households nearing retirement have less than $12,000 in retirement savings. Our nation is facing a retirement deficit of $14 trillion, and that's the difference between what people need to retire and what they've actually saved. Now, if you've watched John Oliver's Last Week Tonight, or you've tried to figure out your own retirement, you know that high fees mean that some retirement accounts will actually cost you more money than you might save. If you think figuring that out is tough, managing the plan and complying with the regulations can be impossible for employers, particularly small businesses. I share this as someone who's managed multiple plans. I'm a union-side labor lawyer who practiced Employee Retirement Income Security, ERISA law. I had the misfortune to work as an associate on the Delphi bankruptcy at Gorla, Kravitz and Listhouse as we represented the International Union of Operating Engineers. I was horrified to learn that titans of industry like General Motors were able to spin off its failing auto parts factories in 1999 to Delphi, who in turn declared the largest Chapter 11 bankruptcy in history at the time, after a little over 5 years in 2005. Ostensibly, this arose out of a dispute with the United Auto Workers as they sought to get out of their pension obligations. I learned there was something wrong with our laws and the lawmakers behind them. Somehow, a person could work their entire lives for an automaker who somehow couldn't afford to pay their retirement. Meanwhile, that same automaker had millions to pay executives and then millions more for golden parachutes when those same executives ran the company into the ground in less than 5 years. All this while leaving their workers without the retirements they worked for their entire lives. These workers sacrificed so much to save for retirement, often trading raises at the collective bargaining table for the guarantee of a stable retirement. I knew that firsthand, and it made it worse. This is when I decided to go into politics. Working with Bill Samuels, I administered pension plans for 2 companies, and we realized why so few employers offered these plans. We began advocating for private participation in public pensions in 2012 through Effective New York. In early 2015, then Public Advocate Tish James and Civil Service and Labor Chair Danique Miller proposed and heard Introduction 692 to study a public retirement plan for private sector workers. By the fall of 2015 and 2016, I worked with Mayor Bill de Blasio and James to advocate with the White House and through the rulemaking process around new rules promulgated by the Employee Benefit Security Administration, EBSA, of the Department of Labor that resulted in guidance on how states and cities could establish retirement programs for private sector workers. Mayor de Blasio has been a steadfast supporter of offering every New Yorker access to retirement, announcing his support in February of 2016. Now, Gotham Gazette got the scoop on what happened next. When Trump was elected, he brought Breitbart News executive Stephen Bannon into the White House. He had the bright idea of taking a selfie with a whiteboard of his priorities. Number one among them was stopping us from helping workers save for retirement. First, I can believe that Bannon took that selfie. Second, since when did the Republican Party go from the party of states' rights and personal responsibility to the party of passing House joint resolutions to roll back regulations in an effort to block states and from helping residents take personal responsibility and save for their own retirement? Third, whether for better or for worse, the Trump administration and the Republican Senate still don't understand executive authority. To be clear, Mr. President and Senate Majority Leader, executive orders and regulations cannot change federal laws. Repealing regulations that provided guidance on how states and cities could establish retirement plans for private sector's employees does not make following that advice illegal. So far, 10 states and 1 city have enacted government-sponsored retirement programs for private sector workers. In April of 2018, the state enacted legislation long carried by Assemblymember Robert Rodriguez in the budget as the New York State Secure Choice Savings Programs to provide employers that do not currently offer retirement savings to their employees with the option of offering a Roth individual retirement account managed by the state. A voluntary option is great, but auto-enrollment improves voluntary participation, even if it means that some people may opt or drop out of the program. You don't have to take my word for it. You can ask Nobel laureate Richard Thaler or New York City's own Teresa Ghilarducci, or the mountain of research by economists on point. Now, in Oregon, they've launched Oregon Saves, which is the first in the nation auto IRA for private sector's workers, and they did so in 2017. So far, they've signed up 3,200 employers. They've established 50,000 accounts for new savers with a participation rate of 70% and 30 million saved in just 2 years with monthly contributions of $4 million a month and increasing. And did I mention that they're testifying here today? The legislation I've reintroduced with Civil Service and Labor Chair Idanique Miller will do the following. Auto-enrollment of employees would be mandatory through payroll deductions for employers with 10 or more employees who have not offered a retirement savings plan for the past 2 years. Employees over 21 years of age who've worked more than 20 hours a week would be auto-enrolled with a default contribution rate of 3%. Smaller employers who have not offered these plans and independent contractors such as gig workers who do not have access to retirement savings would be able to join on their own. Employers would not contribute to the plan and there would be no cost to employers. The hearing is today and the time is now to pass this legislation. Every New Yorker must have access to retirement savings so that they can one day retire. Thank you.
Oh, I forgot. I got to pull myself back out here. All right, I'm back. Okay. Okay. Hi, Mayor. Good to see you. Oh, you did, but you were a very happy sneaker-inner here, so thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to Jamila Joseph, Associate Director of DC 37. Go DC 37. All right.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Ooh, a little short over here. I wanted to start off by saying that retirement is and should be a right and not a privilege. Social Security alone doesn't cut it anymore. When we have fewer than half of all New Yorkers being able to save for retirement, we have what we consider a retirement crisis. 40% of New Yorkers between the ages of 50 and 64 have less than $10,000 saved, as you heard. And of course, this tends to be, no shocker, disproportionately women of color of low-income communities. This is unacceptable for a city and unsustainable for our country. New Yorkers are working harder, we're working longer, and we have little to no financial security to show for it. And at the end of their careers, after they have contributed so much to what we have here, everybody deserves this right. So I applaud the council and the mayor for what they're doing. I hope to see this legislation passed today, and DC 37 absolutely has your back. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And now we're going to introduce Joanne Yu. She's the executive director of the Asian American Federation. She's been fighting on this issue both at the state level, here on the city level, and great to have her in the trenches with us. So, Joanne Yu.
Thank you.
Yeah, please, stop.
Good morning. My name is Joanne Yu, and I'm the executive director of the Asian American Federation. Thank you, Beth, for inviting me. When Beth and I started working on exploring the economic security of seniors, we discovered that Asian seniors receive 43% less of that of white New Yorkers receiving Social Security income, which is impossible to live on in a city as expensive as New York. Our communities are likely to retire with incomes near the poverty threshold, with limited ability to cover basic needs, not to mention save money or build other assets. And our seniors are unable to depend on Social Security for retirement alone. Now, more than ever, retirement savings is an urgent matter. Asian American seniors are the poorest population of all seniors in the city, and the immigrant community is panicking about ways to eat, get access to affordable health care, and have roof over their heads as horrific federal policies are being proposed. As more and more policies start to chip away at the very survival of our seniors, we have to explore ways that low-income New Yorkers and immigrants can enter the workforce where they can start to save for retirement, as there's a chance that these safety nets that we used to depend on will be taken away to implement horrible, oppressive policies that punish the poor. So as we think about retirement, we also need to discuss how we can create good-paying jobs and how we can get people to those jobs so they can have enough financial resources to cover living expenses and to start saving for their retirement. We are all committed to finding ways to make it easier for communities of color and all New Yorkers to save for retirement, and look forward to working with City Council and the Mayor's office to make this happen. Our seniors deserve to live in dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And next, we're going to hear from Hilda Rogers. She's a community leader, former executive director of the Alpha Phi Alpha Senior Center, and very involved with so many great civic organizations. So, Hilda, thank you.
Okay. Good morning. As it was stated, my name is Hilda Rogers, and I am here today to offer support to the Retirement Security for All proposed legislation. We must give a debt of gratitude to Councilmember Idanique Miller and to Councilmember Ben Callis for their leadership and realization that the access to the lack of workplace retirement plan for many New Yorkers is a public policy issue that is a crisis. We also applaud Mayor de Blasio for his advocacy and support on this issue. Retirement is an important reality for all of us. Most young people think it is around the corner when it really is. Social Security was not meant to be the only source of retirement income. Here are some facts. 57%, or 3 out of 5 private sector workers have no access to an employer-based retirement plan. 10,000 baby boomers return 65 every day, and many of them live here in New York City. In New York City, our population will grow 1.4 million by 2040. We must put a face on this because these are not merely numbers. They represent my and your sisters, brothers, nephews, nieces, and even our grandchildren. There are some challenges. We need to educate our younger workers on the need for a retirement plan. This is not a conversation in the workplace. Having been the executive director of a nonprofit, firsthand I experienced this. I know we have young people coming out of college, starting employment with no retirement plan. There are many employees who work 15, 17, and 10 years. They have worked half of their working years, and they have no retirement plan. So for the great leaders of our city and for our city council, you have a great opportunity. This legislation is needed. You have an opportunity so that you will ensure that your constituents in their later years can have a good quality of life. You have an opportunity to help uplift many African Americans to economic security. And so we pose to our great city council leaders, if not you, then who? It's not when, it's not now, then when? We need this legislation today. Thank you.
Nicely done, Hilda. Okay, and we've now been joined by Councilman Miller. Thank you so much for joining us and like to join us up here. And we'd love to hear from you because I know you've been a driving force of this. So thank you so much, sir.
Good morning. And it's tough to follow my neighbor and constituent there, Ms. Rogers, because she's really spoke truth to power. But I think we are all here because we recognize that fulfilling the goal of retirement is fast becoming a lost tradition in America, and that the next generation stands to inherit less security and a less secure financial future than any that came before them. The outlook is especially bleak for communities of color whose households have seen their wealth plummet by nearly 50% over the past 3 decades. Working families desperately try to keep pace with the cost of living, but the lack of means and direction to avoid falling into poverty in later years has eluded them. Since 2009, more than 2 million New Yorkers didn't participate in employer-sponsored retirement plans simply because it was not offered to them. In 2016, only 3 years ago, nearly 33% of the city's private sector workforce, aged 25 to 64, were participating in workplace retirement, and that has dropped from 40%. And in 3 years, we've seen nearly a 7% plummet in that as well. So our retirement security for all legislation will help more than half of our city's workforce, including those of color whose households value is less than zero, set aside a portion of their earnings so that they can begin to lay a foundation for a stable future. This bill, our bill, this legislation 901, would create a board that will be responsible for implementing the city's run savings plan, educating employees and employers on how it works, and conducting outreach to communities on how important this benefit is. I'd like to thank Mayor de Blasio for embracing this bold proposal, and I'd like to also thank Councilman Kalos for his leadership and AARP and the other advocates that are here. This is so absolutely critical. As Ms. Rogers said, the time is now. We need to do it now, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. So I'm looking forward to also getting upstairs and making sure that this hearing is underway, that all of our voices are heard, that we can move this. Thank you so much for everyone for coming out. Thank you for moving this legislation.
Okay, and now we're going to hear from a worker who's been struggling for how they can save for retirement. I'd like to introduce Anze Lynch. Thank you, Anze. So I don't think you're going to need the step, but maybe you will.
Thank you. All right. kick it in. All right, there we go. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Anze Lynch. I'm a native New Yorker born in Harlem, raised in the Bronx. I have a fiance and 6 children, Naima, Ashanti, Javaris, Johnasia, Anze, and Tion. I've worked ever since I was a teenager. Now I'm 49 years old, and I'm speaking to you today as someone who wishes they could have started saving for a retirement plan 30 years ago. Right now, I'm in commercial carting. It's a tough job. On a typical day on my route along Fordham Road in the Bronx, I'm out hauling cardboard onto a truck. In a single night, 2 of us can pick up anywhere between 100 and more bales a night, adding up to about 14 to 16 tons of cardboard. Over and over, night after night, you come home physically exhausted. It's worth it, because I can support my kids and put food on the table. But it only gets tougher and tougher to do the job as you get older. I know I can't do this job forever because my body won't allow it. And I worry, who is going to take care of me? I don't want to work until I die. And I don't want to be a burden on my kids. And I want to be able to take care of myself. Retirement should be for everybody, not just for people who work in offices here in Manhattan, not just for people lucky enough to have a pension. We need a new law. We need a retirement system for everybody, for people like me. That's why we're going to fight for universal retirement. And we're going to win. Thank you. I'm now proud to introduce our mayor, who joins us in this fight, Bill de Blasio.
Anze, thank you so much. It was very important for everyone to hear what you just said, how folks who work their whole life right now in this city, it's over 1 million people working as hard as they can, and they have no security whatsoever. And that is not the way it's supposed to be. You said something important. You should not have to work until you die. You should be able to enjoy the fruits of your labors. You should be able to have some time in your life where you retire in dignity. So let's give Anze a round of applause for saying it so well. And I know that Danique Miller has to go up and chair the hearing, so I just want to say one quick thing about him before he has to leave, and also about Councilmember Ben Kalos. These 2 council members are leading the way. I want to give them a lot of appreciation because this is an issue that's going to need strong leadership, that's going to need a focus on the big picture. Again, it's the kind of thing our country's gone backwards on. Let's be clear. Remember what Danique said a moment ago, a lost tradition. It used to be that many, many more people had a secure retirement. Many more people were labor union members. Many more people planned on and received the benefits they deserve. That's been declining and declining in this country. We're going the wrong direction. And once again, it's important for this city to lead and for us to reach those 1 million New Yorkers who right now are living with a lot of insecurity. So I hope you will join me in thanking these 2 council members. They are leading the way to change. Danique Miller, Ben Kalos, thank you so much. I want to thank also the members of my administration. A number of members of my team have been working on this for quite a while to get it right. We're dealing with an unfriendly administration in Washington, but that does not deter us. It does not deter other states around the country that are working on this issue. So I want to thank, from the administration, a team that has really put their heart into this, our Commissioner of Finance, Jacques Giha, our Director of the Mayor's Office of Pension Investments, John Adler, Commissioner of Labor Relations, Renee Campion, our Small Business Services Commissioner, Greg Bishop, and our Commissioner for Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, Laura Leigh Salas. Let's congratulate and thank them all. I want to thank our host today, not just for being a fabulous MC, but Beth, you and everyone at ARP, you are a fearsome, awesome, impressive, Beth, I hope you'll agree with me when I offer this concept. Don't mess with AARP. Okay? So, thank you for your leadership. And our colleagues who spoke earlier, also don't mess with the might of DC 37 AFSCME. Thank you, Jamila Joseph. Thank you, Joanne Yu. Thank you, Hilda Rogers. Thank you to everyone who's here also from another great union, RWDSU. Thank you so much for everyone who's here. So, a lot of people have gotten it that we have to do something very, very different. And we're going to do that together. So I'm going to ask you some quick questions, everybody. I know it's Monday morning, but you can do this. You ready? Yes. Do working people keep this city running? Yes. Do working people make New York businesses thrive? Yes. Do working people support their families, pay the bills, keep food on the table? Yes. Do working people deserve to enjoy a secure retirement? Yes. You have answered the quiz correctly. So you get a secure retirement. I thought that was obvious. So the idea, one job, that's right. One job should be enough. Let's get clear about this concept. If someone works all their life, works hard, they should not need to have a second job or a third job. Someone works hard, they should not have to wonder if they could possibly survive in retirement. And yet that is reality today here in New York City, all over this country. I talked a lot about over the last months putting working people first. Here is an example. Giving people retirement security means we actually respect the people who do the work. Imagine that, respecting the people that make everything possible in this city, in this country. But that hasn't been the case for a long, long time. And I want to tell you a very personal story that this happened back in the 1980s. My mom had worked her whole life. For most of my upbringing, she was a single mom. But she always managed to keep it together. She always managed to take care of us, and she retired. And literally out of the blue, one day, no warning, she received a letter. And the letter said that her pension had been canceled. Wow. Private sector company, not a unionized position, and her pension had been canceled. And there was nothing she could do about it. And I remember talking to her, someone who had done everything right in her life. And she felt confused, she felt scared, she felt absolutely powerless. And she found a way going forward to make things work, but it wasn't easy. And I have to tell you right now, we have people all over this city who are right now living that fear, living that anxiety. They're retired and they don't know if they're going to be able to make it. Or they're working and they don't know if they'll ever be able to retire. This is not what we signed up for, everyone. This is not the American dream. And the greatest city in the world, we have to do better. Right now, fewer than half of working New Yorkers have access to a retirement plan. And that's not acceptable. So we have to end the day where folks wake up in the morning getting ready to go to work and wonder if it's going to matter, wonder if it's going to be enough, wonder what the future brings and fear what the future brings. We have to end that. We have to create a day where people actually know their job was enough to live on, one job enough to live on, and a retirement they can depend on. And this legislation is absolutely necessary. And I want to say this city council has been absolutely extraordinary in terms of their focus on working people and moving things forward for this city. And we have worked hand in hand every step of the way. One of the first things we did in the administration with the city council was paid sick leave to make sure folks did not have to choose between going to the doctor and a day's pay. We worked together to make sure there was fair scheduling for fast food workers, retail workers. We worked together on $15 minimum wage, now a reality in this city. We are going to work together in the coming months on paid personal time off to do in this city what they do all over the world, to make sure that working people actually get a guarantee of some vacation time each year. So we're going to make this a city that's fair. Every single year we're going to get fairer, and we're going to do better and better by working people. But the City Council, I just want to emphasize, they have been extraordinary partners, and we are going to buckle down and make these changes and make this city stronger. Now, I just want to ask you one more set of questions since I warmed you up before. If you work in the fast food industry, do you deserve a good retirement? Yes. If you work at a laundromat, do you deserve a good retirement? Yes. If you work in home health care, do you deserve a good retirement? Yes. Wherever you work, do you deserve a good retirement? Yes. No importa donde trabajas. En la ciudad más justa de América queremos que todos tengan esa oportunidad. We want every working person to have a fair and good retirement. Everyone, thank you for fighting. We're going to win. Thank you. Wait, we'll get your height back.
Please.
Beth is going to be tall again.
Mi Paquito. Okay. So let's just remember, we're talking about the value to workers, but I want everyone to remember this is also a value to the businesses of New York City. Because when people are able to have a secure retirement, middle-class people retire, they don't take their money and take it offshore, folks. They spend it right in their neighborhoods and communities, at their bodegas, at their dry cleaners, at their drugstores, etc., and they pay their taxes. Right? And so it's important for our city and state tax coffers, but it's really important for the economy of New York City. People 50 plus contribute to New York City economy $70 billion every single year. So it's up to all of us to make sure that they want to stay here and they can live comfortably here. And we at ARP believe that this is one of the cornerstones. This retirement savings for all is one of the cornerstones to make sure that happens. I want to say two more things. People who can retire and can save in the workplace, and it's automatically taken out of their paycheck, which this bill does and is so significant, they are 15 times more likely to save for their retirement. Okay? And then the last thing I want to say is communities of color, as Joanne you spoke about before and Hilda also spoke about, they are suffering more. Their savings are less and their job security is less. And we cannot tolerate this in this city, and we never have. This leadership, the mayor, city council, they're not going to tolerate it. So this is the way we all come together and we make sure there is an even playing field for all New Yorkers to retire with dignity. So I thank city council people, and I thank our mayor, and I thank all of you for caring. Thank you. So we are now going to go into on-topic questions. So if you have any press, any on-topic questions, please.
Yeah, I wanted to ask if you could address things from the perspective of someone making minimum wage, because 3% might not be that much in the long term, but in the short term, it'll put a dent in their bottom line. So how do you persuade people on minimum wage not to drop out?
Did you hear what Anze said when he got up here? He wished he had started 30 years ago. All of us can look back at our younger selves, and if we had advice to give us, what would we have said? Save. We know it's hard. We know you got to make difficult decisions. Nobody is not agreeing with that. But if you don't have it, you can't catch up. You just can't catch up.
We posed the same question to Oregon Saves, where they've already launched the program. What they found is they have the highest participation rate amongst low-wage workers, particularly in the restaurant industry, and it provides an opportunity that people can actually save. The average contribution is actually $122 a month, which is actually substantial. They have a very low opt-out rate. 70% of the people are participating. They also did a additional study to see, did this increase people's credit card debt? Did it force people to fall behind on mortgage payments? And what they found was that there was no effect on debt or mortgage payments, that this is working in Oregon and it's something that we can be doing here and will actually help the community.
I think you said that there's no cost to employers, so
Correct.
what's the cost to the public if the city is managing this? And then a question for the mayor.
The fees will come from the investments. It will be low fee, so no cost to the employers. They just do the payroll deduction just like all the other payroll deductions. And for the city, it's not really a cost for us other than just getting the initial setup. Oregon is already self-funding 2 years in. So the great thing is when you're managing money, that money generates income which can be used to administer the funds, and here we just be doing a low fee.
Mr. Mayor, you had a similar rally on this back in 2016. I'm wondering why we're still talking about it 3 years later.
There was an election in between. I don't know if you heard about it. The Obama administration Labor Department was working with us, working with states and cities around the country, and then the election changed everything, and we had to reset the strategy, which we have done. On your previous question, exactly what the council member said, there's a small initial startup cost to the city. We are still working to perfect what that dollar figure would be, somewhere between $1.5 million and $3 million a year for the first 3 years. But again, a very small cost in the scheme of the city budget and, as you said, a program that will be self-maintaining. Yes?
Actually, so when the Trump administration came over, it's my understanding Congress passed something that would prohibit or restrict municipalities and states from moving forward with these types of accounts. And the law hasn't changed, so why are you now confident that this is legal to do?
Let me offer to John Adler, very speedy John Adler, saw the pitch coming. Someone worked out this morning. Okay.
So the law didn't change. What happened was the Obama administration passed a rule that said that states and cities could do it, but it was always the understanding that the existing law would not prohibit it, would allow it. And so when the Republicans in Congress and Trump rescinded the Obama regulation, the law still remained unchanged. And since then, multiple states have moved forward, and we believe we're on very strong legal ground moving forward with this plan, just like these other states that are moving forward.
How would the timetable on this work? And also, if a company decides to do this, do they have to let the employees vote to go ahead and do this? Or does the company just do this on their own and mandate the 3% deduction on every employee?
So this is an auto-enrollment IRA, and the concept is that once the company enrolls, all the employees are notified, and depending on the administrative framework, in Oregon, they enter in the information for the employees, the state reaches out. So in this case, similar model, we would likely reach out, set up the auto deduction for them, and get them into the system.
So when would this happen here in New York?
As soon as possible. What I would say is we have the hearing today. We're going to go upstairs with the 75 or 100 folks and let folks know why this is so important. And my goal is to work with everyone here. And if you can reach out to your local council member and say, I want to save for retirement, sign on to the Retirement Security for All legislation and work with Mayor de Blasio. We need to get it passed, and we could roll it out particularly quickly.
Is the contribution variable, or is it simply 3%?
It is a automatic 3%. There is a trend nationwide. There's a nationwide trend to actually set a 5% default with an auto increment increase. However, right now it would start with 3%. Once in, they've done a lot of studies, and I think more than half just leave it at the default. But there's a small population that will go in and change the number either south or north. Actually, more people increase their deductions, and people would have complete control out of it. And if at any point they wanted to, they could just opt out. It's voluntary from the beginning.
Yes. Who exactly will administer this? And it also makes me wonder, since retirement's like a really big business, have any private retirement companies approached you about getting involved with the savings, trying to invest them, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so the plan would be administered by a board appointed by the mayor, but the likelihood is that the actual day-to-day administration would be carried out by a private third party that the board hires to run the program. That's what's being done in the other states.
Is there like a request for proposals? How
Yes,
would you do that?
exactly, through a request for proposals.
Is there any names who might be on the table?
There's a whole large group of companies out there that run, that are third-party administrators that run these types of retirement plans.
Why not have the city controller do it, considering he already manages the pension funds, and I would think he's an expert in this area?
Well, so actually, the most analogous situation in New York City is the deferred compensation plan, which is run by the Office of Labor Relations, which uses a third-party administrator to manage accounts for about 200,000 city employees that voluntarily put money into these defined contribution accounts.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask you, if you want to... Hold on. I was curious why you wanted to go forward with this, with a rally, and sort of have this political push when paid personal leave is still sort of kicking around.
Where what, please?
Paid personal leave is still...
Oh, because we can do a lot of things at once around here. There's a hearing today. The council member, his bill, Danique Miller's committee, they're ready to go, and we're ready to go too. This is something we think is necessary. This is a very aggressive city council. I give them a lot of credit. They've done a lot. A very, very active city council. So we're going to be able to work on both these things at once.
Been sort of lobbying around with some of the members. Seems to be only 4 co-sponsors at this point. Is that something you're looking to do?
We'll certainly be talking to members. I mean, again, the lead sponsors and the committee chair are going to be owning this very powerfully. We're going to help in every way we can, working with them. But one, I believe the pure common sense of this will win the day, right? You're creating a voluntary system that helps people save money so they have a secure retirement. We've got over 1 million people don't have that right now, who want it, who need it. Does not cost small businesses, does not create a burden for them, only creates opportunity. Anyone who doesn't want to do it doesn't have to do it. So it's talk about win-win. Was that a win-win? Yes. The people have spoken. But second, again, I think this is a city council that's very sympathetic to these ideas. But in terms of extra energy, extra focus, I have AARP here with me. They're very good at creating extra energy and extra focus. So no, I'm confident this is a good idea, and members will feel that. And you know, Ben knows best his own colleagues, but I think there's going to be a desire to move quickly. Okay, on this topic, anything else for any of us?
So employers can't opt out of this, and it's what, 10 employees? What are the?
Height challenge. Employers can offer their own retirement plan at any time. And so that's how they would opt out. So essentially an employer, and we would welcome that, employers to begin offering their own retirement plan. If they don't choose to do that, then they would enroll in this city's plan.
So you have to have, Rich, the bottom line is there has to be something. Wherever you work, there has to be some kind of retirement plan available. That's just common sense, but it's not the reality here. It's not the reality all over the country. You got to establish this notion. I think what Danique said was so positive that there was more of a tradition of actually taking care of people's retirement. And once upon a time, Social Security went a lot farther too. You know, so we got to get back to the notion of protecting people's retirements. It should be everywhere. And this bill is wonderfully flexible. If the employer wants to do it, that's great. If the employee doesn't want to participate, that's their right. But we want to make it available everywhere. Okay, last call on this topic. Okay, for everyone who has been so patient here, if you want to go to the hearing or you have other things to do in your life, thank you. You can go do those things. Thank you. Commissioners, stick around. Things got quiet. Very impressive. Okay, we are going to other topics. Other topics. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, since you dropped out of the presidential race, why are you continuing to operate Fairness PAC, and do you still plan to travel across the country and support other candidates or pitch your progressive vision?
I'll be traveling less. Absolutely going to keep working on the vision. The issue, for example, automation that I raised in the last few weeks is something I'll keep working on for sure, because I think it's a massive crisis that has no answer right now in Washington, and it's going to take a lot of us pushing for change. So I'm going to keep working on that, and a PAC is a vehicle, obviously, to do that kind of work. Yeah.
Mayor, there's a home we reported on last night on CBS News in Rotunda, New Bronx. This home is more like an overgrown jungle. There's a bucket outside with fish that have been rotting for days. There's bottles of who knows what. Neighbors say there's urine, mosquitoes, flies. The stench is horrible. The neighbors there say they've called many city agencies, sanitation, health department, police, fire. They are not getting anywhere. I'm wondering, would you be able to live next to this?
I'm sure we could address this today. I'm glad you're bringing it to my attention, and if you'll turn next to you after this to Freddie and give her the address, we will get out there immediately and see what we can do to address it. I'm glad you're raising it. Please.
Just one more, if I may. Can you just talk about is the city reaching out to students at public schools that were in public schools during 9/11?
Yes.
Can you just talk about that?
Well, so, the young people who were in those schools in the months after that tragedy were affected by that environment too. And they are covered if they have health care needs. So we want to make sure that those students and their families know that. So we're working with others to make sure that outreach is done. We want to make sure anyone who needs help gets it. I don't know exactly which lawyers, but different lawyers that we worked with advised that as the best approach, because we were working on both kinds of elections. Again? You can follow up with John Paul Lupo on that.
Last week you tweeted that you were impressed by the climate marchers, but as you know, 30% of greenhouse gas emissions come from the transportation sector. You've been resistant to create car-free zones in the city, but now there's growing demand for you to give up your car at least one day a week. Is that something that you...
So I disagree with your first statement, respectfully. We did car-free Prospect Park. We did car-free Central Park. We actually announced that we will be doing additional car-free zones, including in Lower Manhattan. More to come on that. I use my car when I need to use it. Certainly looking for every opportunity. If I don't need to use it, sometimes the subway is a lot better. But I got to decide case by case given the nature of my job.
To at least one day?
Yeah, I got to decide case by case given the nature of my job.
Another sort of post-presidential campaign question. Maybe you could say, what was it like the first weekend after you ended? Do you feel like you have to kind of win over those New Yorkers who became disenchanted with the campaign? And can you say, what are your top priorities for the duration of your
Well, my top priorities are the same ones that I've had throughout. And I respect the question, but I do want to advise that we just kept moving the agenda throughout. And we will keep moving it. So obviously the things that we've been focused on intensely this year, guaranteed health care for all, making that come alive over these next few years, 3K, making that as universal as possible, passing the law we talked about today, retirement security for all, passing paid personal time law. There's a whole lot more where that came from, but it's going to be a race to the finish. And look, I found that a very substantial number of New Yorkers that I talked to, all they cared about was that the work was happening, and they're going to see the work happen.
What did it feel like this past weekend? Was it liberating? Was it...
Well, look, I was in this campaign because I thought I had something to offer. So, obviously when you go out there and you try and get something done, it doesn't work out. That's on one level sad, but on another level, I felt like I raised some really important issues, and I'm going to keep working on those issues. And yeah, it's nice to not have to schlep around. That is definitely, that was a kind of relief to have just a less busy schedule in terms of travel. Go ahead.
So residents who live around Tompkinsville Park have recently launched the petition calling on Governor Cuomo to declare a state of emergency in the area. This is the area where you're opening the 200-family homeless shelter, and you're saying, there's too much crime and drugs. What are your thoughts on the petition? Have you seen it, and do you support declaring a state of emergency?
No, I have not seen it. No, I do not support declaring a state of emergency. This is an area where we're making big changes long before the decision on the homeless shelter. And we are changing that park so it will be a safer environment. We're continuing to reinforce it in terms of NYPD presence and strategies. And we need shelters for each part of this city. So we're going to proceed with that plan.
Downtown Friday, does he have any plans that you can share now that the campaign has ended?
You have to ask him about his plans. I have not been alerted to any plans. What did you mean about Friday?
He wasn't at Gracie Mansion, but
what do you mean he was working. I don't know the details, but he was working.
Campaign? And
Yeah.
do you have a way we can read like a cell for him or something? Because he doesn't have a
Not giving you a cell, no. If you talk to the campaign, they'll figure it out.
campaign on Friday?
Yeah, there's a closeout that has to happen with any campaign.
I'm wondering how San Gennaro compares to the Iowa State Fair, and if you plan to have more of these kind of New York City-centric events in the weekends coming up.
Yeah, I've been having them for 6 years, so I definitely will be having plenty of them. And I love the San Gennaro Festival. I went, when I was the first days at NYU in 1979, I went to the San Gennaro Festival for the first time, and I've loved it ever since. And he's the patron saint of Naples, which is near where my family comes from, so I love San Gennaro. The Iowa State Fair was a pretty mind-blowing experience, but San Gennaro's home. Yes?
Mayor, the president today is not participating in the climate change discussion at the UN. Instead, he's going to this religious freedom discussion. Your thoughts on him doing that and not really...
I think it's scary. Dave, it's hard to be shocked by President Trump, but, this is the fate of the earth we're talking about. And we saw those young people come out on Friday. They're literally saying this is a matter of their survival. And that their president can't even bother to go to a climate summit. That's pretty disgusting.
Mr. Mayor, another question about Mr. Trump. His dabbling in the Ukraine issue and the whistleblower complaint. Do you see that as impeachment material?
Yes, unquestionably. Remember when he gave that interview with George Stephanopoulos a few months back? And he basically invited this kind of deal-making with foreign leaders in exchange for dirt on his political opponents. And then literally, we saw that come to life with this call with the Ukrainian president, and now he's admitting he actually did it. I don't know what isn't more, that's treason. It's treason. So all the details have to be proven, but it's absolutely grounds for impeachment. Yeah.
What would you say is the one thing you took from the presidential campaign that you're going to bring to your final 2 years here?
I don't think there's one thing. I think a presidential campaign teaches you a lot of things, but one of the things that's obvious to me from being out there is that this country is in the process of changing. What I saw at the grassroots was a lot better than what I saw in the day-to-day, public discourse, the sort of national, you turn on cable news or something, does not give you the same feeling as when you're out there with people. So I came back a lot more hopeful, but I think the country's changing rapidly, and I do believe it will change in a more progressive direction, and that is encouraging of everything we're trying to do here. We have to do a lot here. We have the ability to do more here. It's good for New York City first and foremost, but it also is good for the country. Yes?
The 21st cyclist was killed this weekend. It was a teenager riding his bike from Long Island to meet Queens. I know that you and the Department of Transportation, you've stepped up Vision Zero. You want to improve streets, but a lot of people are critical of what you've done and what you haven't done to make streets safer. Do you think that criticism is fair, and will you change or actually maybe...
I think we're going through a horrible period here, and each one of these is very human tragedy, and we're just going to do more and more and more. I have no doubt about Vision Zero. Vision Zero has worked for 6 years. We just need to do more.
With the ration death, how come you can't support Councilman Landry's reckless driving bill or the Speaker's master plan?
Again, I haven't seen Councilman Lander's bill, but I believe some of what he has talked about in that bill is things I do agree with. It's just about the specific wording. And with the Council Speaker, we're in agreement directionally. It's about deciding what can actually be done, setting goals that can actually be achieved. Because the last thing you want to do is set a bunch of goals that are not achievable. That is unfair to the public. But we're all moving in the same direction. Please.
So I believe that Brian Lair asked you about Councilman Landry's bill 2 weeks ago. So you haven't taken a look at it?
No, we have a legislative process around here, and it's sequenced according to which bills are moving when. There's a lot of legislation moving in the council. And so I work with my team on the legislation that's pending most urgently, and we decide how we're going to handle each one, and we do it in sequence. So when the time comes, we will address that one. All right, last call, please.
MTA capital plan is going to be voted on Wednesday. Now that you had more time to process it, what are your thoughts on it?
We'll let you know by Wednesday.
I wanted to ask again about the Fairness Pact. Given the issues you have with the Campaign for One New York, the FEC citing you last week for the loan you gave to your presidential campaign, why, and even your own challenges in raising the minimum individual donors for your presidential campaign, why continue a pact on this sort of thing that, I mean, there's been investigations and other citations against it? Why not just say, maybe, I tried the national stage, it wasn't really working, so let me just put all my energy in New York City?
A couple of things. So first of all, just on that repayment, it was made already to the PAC, so that was done. You start, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, you start with an assumption about all the things you laid out, and I have a very different understanding, having been in the middle of all of it, that we consistently did things the right way, we consistently did them the legal way, and we're going to keep doing that. And as to the issues, I've said this a bunch of times. I think some people want to hear it, other people don't want to hear it. You cannot fix the problems in New York City just in New York City. It's just a fact. Even this automation issue I've been talking about lately, if we don't come up with a national policy to address automation, that's going to affect potentially hundreds of thousands of New York City workers for the worse. So I will keep fighting here in New York City to make the lives of New Yorkers better, and I will keep fighting on the national level for the changes that we need for New York City and for our country. And you have to have a vehicle to work through. So that's where we'll keep it going. All right. Thanks. Oh, well, last call. Go ahead.
Do you think that you can still have the same influence, or hoping to still have influence on the national stage?
I think anyone with good ideas can have influence. And obviously, as mayor of New York City, I have a strong platform to speak from. So I'm going to use it. I think if the ideas are good, they can have an impact. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, are you the point